The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Thursday, September 6th, and you are listening to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Ben is off this week. He is hosting The David Pakman Show, so if you want to hear Ben, easy enough, just click over to that feed. Instead, you've got me, Matt Sinkowitz, and as always, when I'm on, you've got Max Inhofe. How you doing, Max?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We've got a bunch of stuff to do on the show today. We've got a great interview coming up regarding the Ayanna Pressley victory, and we also we're going to sneak some baseball into that one too.
Yeah, but it's accessible baseball talk.
It's going to be. Brittany De La Creta is going to join us. She's a freelance writer who's got bylines all over the place. So we're going to do that at the end of the show. We're going to do something in the middle here. Not what blogs are saying. I know the fans are going to be a little disappointed.
Yeah.
We're going to try something different for the middle. And anything on your mind off the top?
Well, today, Jack Dorsey, Sheryl Sandberg, and Google was supposed to testify. However, their chair was empty all day.
Yeah.
That was kind of the big news of the day.
It was. So Congress people asked, like, there seemed to be less embarrassing questions about like that totally showed a lack of understanding what
the senators seemed more tech literate this time.
They seemed at least somebody under the age of like 80 had like given them a note card or something, right?
Yeah.
So that wasn't so much the problem. The bigger problem with this is charade too cliche? It is a charade. The bigger problem is that I'm not going to say there's no problem. There are huge problems with social media. That's not what these hearings are about. Like, the things that are brought up in this discussion have nothing to do with the central issues that we really should. If we're going to worry about social media, which maybe that shouldn't be at the top. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. If we're going to do it, these are not the things to talk about as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Conservatives want to make this about censorship of conservatives on platforms.
About shadow banning.
Right, which is totally farcical. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, that one's right. That's right. That's keeping away a unicorn attacks or something. Yeah.
Why do you think Republicans want to talk about this so much? If it doesn't exist, what is the point?
I will raise the stakes on you on that one. It's not just that Republicans want to talk about this. So Republicans want to talk about it for a fairly obvious reason, right? It allows the empowered hegemonic group to claim persecution.
Right.
Right, and that's just good strategy, right? If you want to keep a base that has been in power for a long time, which has, a sort of tantrum throwing childlike grip on the government right now. If you want to keep such people, feeling like they need to be excited, right? You make them feel wronged. That you heard Alex Jones screaming at Rubio about whatever nonsense about censorship, right? So that's easy, right? It's clearly it's a distraction, right? Sort of the same old thing, right? And I think we're eventually going to get today's show about the op-ed in the Times today. There's plenty. Put it this way: there's plenty to distract about.
Right.
But you get that distraction, you get that sense of persecution, and there's nothing more powerful and dangerous than an empowered group acting like they're being oppressed, right? That's like a great way to get people to make awful, irrational, but very powerful decisions, which is what they're trying to sort of stir up in the base. But that wouldn't be enough, I don't think, if it weren't also. The next group of people who really are, I think, quite happy to have discussions on censorship and bias, right? That's people like Dorsey.
Yeah.
Right? There are huge problems with social media that need to be concerned. There's some antitrust stuff that needs to be discussed, probably more along the lines of Facebook, but whatever. That's serious, potentially bottom line hurting business. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
There is cultures of abuse, right, that are both against the stated terms of service of the social media platforms and just obviously wrong, right? But let's not talk about that, right? There is misinformation, and we don't need to go down to what the exact nature of it is. We can say that there are things that are taking hold of our understanding of the world, which are not true, right? Like in part the shadow banning and all that.
Yeah.
That's a problem, right? There is extremism. Right, there are people calling for violence. There's terrorist recruiting. There's all these things are major problems, right? And they're real problems, and they're hard to solve. And solving them each and every one of them would have a potential negative impact on the stock price of Twitter in the long run, not just for a one-day dip like we got today.
Yeah.
Right? The problem of bias is not one of those things. It is a thing that is not broken. It's so they can eventually say that they fixed it, right? Because there is no problem, right? So this is a great way to not have to make tough decisions about, for example, like clearing out thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of accounts because they're against terms of service, and because they are, maybe they have extremist elements or whatever else, right? Because that really looks bad in terms of investor profile.
Yeah, right. That hurts their core metrics.
Right. That hurts the things that that hurts the thing that they show investors,
users, etc.
That stuff, right? Don't deal with that bias. Oh, we'll fix that, right? Even if it's not a problem, right? We'll go through this sort of process of dealing with. So they're doing quite well, and Democrats do fine also. I mean, they get to point out how delusional Republicans are, right? They get to point to the fact that Republicans are complaining about non-existent threats, right? And, that might not be great for all Democrats, but certainly empowered, sort of middle-of-the-road establishment Democrats. I think that's a perfectly good look for them. Somebody like Peter Welch, right? Looks perfectly good, him up there sort of, talking about how the Republicans are tilting at windmills or whatever, right? Like, that works for him, too. So, everybody wins.
Except the users.
Except everybody.
Yeah.
Except the overwhelming contingent of humanity. Yeah, I mean, that's really the case here. And, there's some extent to which you can say, we don't have to. Don't use Twitter if you don't want to, right? I mean, there are those elements which you can, but that said, it obviously plays this key role in our debate in the world, and it can have real geopolitical impact. It can have real potentially, connections to the prosecution of wars and connections to extremism. That those things are not, they might not be common, but it doesn't take much of that to create potential problems. That stuff's just not being addressed.
Yeah.
And I am completely convinced this is actually, so I'm a professor of media studies, and I write books about this stuff, and I talk to people, and it's pretty clear to me that the engineers, like people on the ground, know that those are the real problems, and they can fix some of them, not all of them, right? But if you talk to an engineer at YouTube or somebody behind the scenes doing countering extremism work, they'll say there are ways to make tweaks that are not so difficult and not that expensive to the Twitter algorithm for locating, fake accounts or extremist accounts. The problem is, as you say, those things go at the core metrics.
Yeah.
And so we didn't get any of that in these hearings today, and I think I'm a little worked up about it. Actually, but I think we should be not quite as worked up as Lori Loomer was. That's where we all won. Do you want to briefly set that scene?
Right. So Lori Loomer
is just the worst person in the world. But go on.
Absolutely insane. Absolute insanity. Yeah, she's in the back of a hearing room. She stands up holding a selfie stick with her phone attached. She starts saying something, which is what exactly is unclear to me.
It's about bias and shadow banning for sure. Yeah.
Alex Jones was yelling the same thing in the hallways.
Yeah. Oh God, what a show, right? What a circus.
While she starts to do her spiel, one of the congressmen starts doing auctioneering.
Yeah,
talking really quickly,
which he clearly has experience in.
Yes, it was quite good.
It was not like an SNL on Friday night you memorized how to do an impression of a No, this is a dude who knew whatever.
He'd definitely been doing that.
And at first it was sort of funny and weird if you watch the video. Then it seems like a little bit too random, and then the general circus absurdity really, this thing crescendos. I think it is very funny at the end.
Yeah, but everybody's just sitting there, straight-faced, looking bored as hell. It's like, do you not realize what's going on around you?
Well, I really liked how his nonsense sort of mirrored her nonsense. Yeah, it was just loud nonsense.
Very apropos.
Yeah, no, it didn't seem it at first either. I mean, there's a poetry to that. So I don't know anything about the I think it's congressman. Oh gosh, I forget his name. Could look it up. Not going to easily Google auctioneer congressman. I I don't know anything about his politics. They are probably abhorrent. That said, he scored some points there. I mean, that is a good video. And again, it seemed too random at first, but then just the mirroring of her utter nonsense made up. Just like there is no auction, there is no shadow banning, right? Like they are both addressing a thing which is not in the room. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there, we all lost except for that. Other big story of the day, of course, is this I guess mysterious op-ed. You've got a special game.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't. So we're gonna bring on everybody's favorite third wheel, the Josh Moss for that. But it's not what blogs are saying, so we don't have a theme song. Last time we said if we got like multiple people demanding a theme song for what blogs are saying with Josh Moss, we would get one. We got one, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I bet I could get that artist to contribute another one. We need to name this segment. Do you have a name for it?
No, it's just let's play a game.
No, let's play a game. All right, let's play a game presented by Max.
All right.
So no theme song this time. Maybe next time if you want a theme song, if you like the segment, which we haven't done yet. So that we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. If you like it, you want to hear it again, give us a tweet. I'm at Media Studied. He's
Maximillionaire.
At Maximillionaire. We'll say that again at the end of the show. Hit us up if you want to hear a theme song.
And now for a segment I like to call Let's Play a Game. Probably will be as horrifying as Saw, but
I like it. Yeah, that's how Saw starts, right? But
yeah.
We're going to have to like chew through our own eyeball or whatever.
Hopefully not.
Just metaphorically.
Yes.
Just in the political sense. Actually, if we're going to be talking about this op-ed, it is maybe the rough equivalent of chewing through your own eyeball.
So today in the New York Times, they took the rare step,
which they said,
publishing.
Right?
Yes, they made very clear that it's rare, of publishing a unnamed op-ed entitled "I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration." So this fellow works for the Trump administration and thinks Trump is a danger to the country. However, impeaching him is just too much trouble, so it's better to just try to thwart him inside his own White House. Anyways.
What's the game?
Who wrote the op-ed?
It's pretty straightforward, but okay. Is there more to it than us just throwing names out?
I have a few.
Okay.
And I would like to hear good reasons why or why not this person wrote the op-ed.
Okay, so it's a game, which means that we're gonna need another player. So we brought on New York comedian Josh Moss. You there, Josh?
I'm here.
All right, you ready to play?
Yes, I am very ready.
All right, that's good. Let's hear it.
Mnuchin.
All right,
Mnuchin. Well, is that your guy, Josh?
Okay, that's your guess. No, I'm here.
No, so I think the idea, if I'm clear on this, Max, is Max wants us to make arguments for or against.
Oh, for Mnuchin.
Yeah.
Okay, well, one, it's, I would say against would be I don't think he's written much in general in a while. Like, he
So
just
he
doesn't
may be
seem like the kind of guy who... Yeah, he just doesn't seem like a writer.
No, this is
like
a good opportunity to ask a question. Do you think this person actually wrote this thing? Because I do not. I think that the person maybe put some ideas, but one, if it's supposed to be anonymous, then the syntax or whatever would be potentially a giveaway. And two, it just is so op-edy, right? It's like
it is.
It's like written by an editorial team. It seems, but so I reject your point that he's not a writer because I think that the person who wrote this didn't write it. So you have any other points?
He also I just think he's, I think he's like just too busy prepping for Rosh Hashanah, frankly, to do this.
He's got to go shopping for apples and honey. He's got to get his suit let out. Yeah, no, that is conceivable. I would also say no on the grounds that, why does he care? He seems like the kind of guy that if he really had such a problem with it, would bail.
Yeah. He also likes to make a point of how good Trump's genes are, and I don't think you just say that for no reason.
Oh God! All right, that's Josh. Josh wins that point, but we agree in the outcome. Next,
Kellyanne Conway.
Kellyanne Conway. So I'll start with Kellyanne. In her favor, there is the Woodward call, where she comes on and clearly, like, in the presence of the President of the United States, says the President of the United States is a total liar, who can't do this, who cannot even admit like the obvious truth that he had received a phone call in the past. That was brazen. That also suggests that she thinks she can do something right in front of him without him, like, realizing that he's being made fun of. So that's not bad. What do you think, Josh?
The reason I don't think it's her is because she's the person in the Scooby-Doo episode who, like, Shaggy and Scooby point to as the person, but then it turns out it's the other person. Like, it's.
So you're saying that the person is wearing a Kellyanne Conway mask?
Yes, basically.
All right.
It's that kind of person. It's that kind of situation where, like, they want you to think that.
That seems like an argument for Mnuchin in some ways, Josh. just. All right, very good. I'm going to take that point. I thought I beat it. What do you think, Max?
Could be. I like your points.
All right.
Wilbur Ross.
Josh, you know more about Wilbur Ross than me. You go for it.
All right. So if it's true, as in the book, that Trump went up to Wilbur Ross and said, "You're past your prime," I could definitely see Wilbur Ross doing this. That's in favor of him. Like, it's just like a revenge. His revenge. Like, his son wrote it for him. Whose son who's like a tutor or something. You know.
An overpriced tutor.
Yeah.
That's good. The connection to the phone call is good. I think I'm against maybe, again, on the ambition. Like, I want this person to be doing this for a very clear purpose. Like, I want there to be an ambition involved. And I guess I don't know enough about Wilbur Ross. I don't see that there. So I'll probably concede that Josh's call to the way back news of the book. What, yesterday?
Yesterday.
Right, that feels like... Anyway, that's what we do these days. We talk about how yesterday felt like years ago. All right, I'll concede to Josh on that one. Who's next?
You will like this. This is a person with ambition. Nikki Haley.
That's my person. All right. Nikki Haley is perfectly set up to be a terrible Republican president. Like, she has the demographic is right, the looks are right, the sound is right, the resume is right, but she could not be a terrible cartoon circus land Trump sort of like she's not. Politics are going to have to move a little bit, maybe not towards saying towards the good might be too much, but towards the previously normative. And so if you've got somebody who has a clear ambition, place that she wants to go, and is going to have to explain her record of doing apologetics for this ridiculous whole thing, she seems like the right kind of person. I'm gonna say that her ambitions give her a motive.
All right,
Josh. All right. Well, the reason I would say it's not her is because while it makes sense that she is one of the few people, obviously, who has a future after this, is the single reason she wouldn't do it, because if it ever got out that it was her, she'd be considered like a traitor. And I think that just so many people would hold that against her. Like, what?
Right, but what I'm saying is that her bet, she has to be considered a traitor. Because if the politics go down this path, and if this presidency is considered a successful thing in the eyes of Republicans, she's dead in the water anyway. Right? Then we need to elect Alex Jones president or whatever next, right? Like, my thought is that it won't look traitorous because she's assuming that she's writing the history, or her type of people are. What do you think of that?
Okay, you get the point. You win.
All right, very good. What else you got?
Those are the 4 names. Do you guys have any wild cards?
So I'm a Haley guy, Josh.
I actually think it's pretty obvious who wrote this.
Hold on. Okay, I just want to get ready. It's obvious. So, obvious, like when you say it, we're both going to go like, oh, you had it, or not that.
Well, yes. Who wants to distract most from the Kavanaugh hearings, and wants to acknowledge flaws in the presidency, but acknowledge he doesn't know impeachment? Clearly, Trump wrote it.
Yeah. I saw it coming.
Clearly, Trump. clearly Trump hired Tony Schwartz from The Art of the Deal back. He's like, and they're back together again, and this is their like comeback. And
right.
Trump's playing the fool like usual, and it's taken up all the airspace over the Kavanaugh hearing.
So, this is the 8-dimensional chess theory.
Yes, yes.
Well, like back when Trump was like a really unsuccessful real estate developer, he used to call the New York dailies and be like, "Hey, I have an anonymous source that says Donald Trump is awesome." Right? That was kind of his thing.
He did.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's right. Yeah, he would. What was the name of? We should have looked this up before, Josh. If I knew this was coming, what was Trump's like alias when he made phone calls?
Like something Miller? Or no, I don't know.
Yeah, it was Miller. It was something. Let me. They'll do some live Googling. John Miller. That is a great.
Miller, yeah.
If you had just, to be clear, Josh, we could edit this, but we're not. We'll do it legit.
Yeah.
If you had just said that John Miller had written this, then you not only would have retired this game, not just not just won the game. So the answer is pretty good. That's a pretty strong answer. John Miller.
Yeah,
that's
kind of convincing, actually.
I mean, I actually, it's slightly more serious. Like just a hoax is definitely another wild card. Right, like I don't know how that would get past the editorial board, but
wait, can we actually talk about this? How did is the presumption that the actual author contacted the New York Times and said that this is me?
Yeah, I mean, presumably this is the kind of person that would know people at the New York Times, right?
Yeah. So
what I'm saying is, it's not just someone getting an email from their account, which could be hoaxy. Like, this is like they got verbal confirmation, you think, from
yeah.
whoever.
I mean, what I'm saying is that it is somewhat possible that it is on the outside. That is some sort of hoax like that, but seems unlikely.
The Times said in the preface to the article that the author is a senior official in the Trump administration whose identity is known to us and whose job would be jeopardized by its disclosure. And so that's why they're publishing it anonymously. All right.
I mean, some sort of Adbusters, this is all a big performance piece is possible. But yeah, it seems like the New York Times, for all of its flaws, probably can verify the existence of an already famous person.
The depressing real answer is that it's probably they're being a little hyperbolic by senior staffer.
Yeah.
And by known to us just means like, well, they're all known to us. Ha ha ha.
That's true.
And it could just be like assistant, deputy secretary of state, someone who we just don't know.
Yeah, no, that is
really
that is a way less fun probably. If you had to bet, yeah. You would take the field versus the people we've named, for sure.
Do you remember those PBS documentaries, Trump's War and Obama's War, and Richard Armitage, the Deputy Secretary of State, was the star of those. He was. This is, I know it's an obscure reference, but
that's what you're here for, Josh.
Yes, but it's going to be someone like that, someone who it's a kind of a high position, but in reality, no one knows who this guy is. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that's most likely. All right, I'm gonna turn it to Max. Max, you can declare a winner for this version of Let's Play a Game.
Josh.
Yeah, it's pretty. I saw that coming. All right, thanks for coming on, Josh. We're gonna go to our interview now. We're gonna talk some Ayanna Pressley and some baseball. So thanks for coming on, Josh.
No problem.
And now we have the pleasure of bringing onto the show Brittany de la Creta. Brittany is a freelance sports writer with a number of great bylines. I actually came across her today. She had a strong take on the election of Ayanna Pressley last night, and that was really why I wanted to bring her on. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And you're coming to us from Dorchester, Massachusetts, inside Ayanna Pressley's district. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so I assume you voted for the to-be Congresswoman.
I did.
When I saw your name on Twitter when it came across my feed, you had put forward the idea that you have a problem with the way that the press in general is treating the election of Pressley. I've seen a number of different approaches, some narratives emerging. What particular narratives do you see that you find lacking or problematic in some way?
The narratives that I'm finding to be the most problematic are coming from national outlets who are trying to make this kind of cohesive narrative of, I think, a way to describe what we're seeing in these elections as what is being called a blue wave, or I've seen it called an anti-incumbent wave, is happening. And I think that it misses a lot of what Ayanna Pressley has been building and doing locally for a really long time. I saw a take that after Donald Trump's election, we're seeing all of these younger candidates, women of color being elected. But I think that pegging Ayanna Pressley's victory to Trump's election actually erases all of the work that Pressley has done to get to this point.
No, I think that's a really important correction. Would you disagree with the idea that this is sort of an enabling possibility, that something, like sort of the crisis that we have with regards to Trump and the general sort of state of things, would you concede that is maybe sort of a necessary condition for the breakthrough, but nonetheless, of course, that's not why she's there, right? She's there because of the good work she's done, but maybe there's multiple, sort of necessary conditions to get to where we got last night?
Sure. I think the timing has been good, but I don't know how long Pressley has been looking at her next move in politics. It may have happened to coincide with this, but I think that Ayanna has built such a name for herself locally over the last at least decade that she was in city council, but before that, she worked for John Kerry. She has these bona fides, even though she's often being called political newcomer, Ayanna Pressley. She's not a newcomer.
Yeah.
And I think her name has a lot of weight. If you look at the numbers she's pulled when she ran for city council, she was getting these overwhelming victories there. So I think that whenever she decided that this was going to be her next step, she would have stood a shot at beating Capuano anyway, just because of who she's been locally.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fair point. You alluded to it a little bit there, but do you want to speak a little bit more to what she means to the district, her presence, what she has accomplished, and these things that sort of have established her as, I agree, certainly not a newcomer. She's certainly been doing things for a while. Would you like to just speak to your experiences, just being in the district, seeing what she does?
Sure. So I actually met her when I was activist and community organizer. Probably a little bit over 5 years ago, I was active doing a lot of organizing around gender-based violence, racial justice, and I was incredibly involved in the anti-Olympic movement here. I was part of that kind of core grassroots movement to defeat the bid. And Ayanna was consistently the only local politician that showed up to everything that we did, who made the time to speak to us, to hear from us, to endorse what we were doing. Years later, she still remembers who I am, and I haven't been in the organizing space in at least 5 or 6 years, and she still remembers who I am and what I did. And I feel like a lot of people have that story if you talk to them, that she's been going into the neighborhoods and the communities. And I think the other thing that a lot of people outside of Boston don't know a lot about is her fight for liquor license reform in the city, and how important that was, because we have this really terrible and unique situation in which liquor licenses are very limited, and they cost a lot of money, and they tend to be kind of hoarded in the higher income areas of the city, which left establishments in, really Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, unable to get liquor licenses, and it was creating even more income disparity. And that was something that she pushed and fought for really hard over the last several years.
No, I really do appreciate those specific insights. And I think you're completely right. There's a temptation now to just take everything and sort of not just make it national, like make it historical, right? Like set it in this sort of broad sweep of history, using language like waves and sort of everything at that broader scale. And I think your corrective is really good. That there is just this narrative that you're pointing out, which I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm really glad that you're saying it. You were at the party last night, is that correct? The victory party?
I was on my couch when Capuano conceded, and it happened so fast. I had not expected it to happen so quickly, and I just want to go hug somebody. I think I'm still a little traumatized from watching the election results come in when Hillary lost, and like sobbing alone on my couch. And this was sort of the opposite, in that I wanted to be around people who I could hug, because it was like a little bit of feel good hope. And so I live about 5 minutes from where the party was being held, so I drove down.
I mean, it's probably pretty obvious what the general feel was like, but I don't know, any images that stick out, any aspects of it that will be particularly memorable for you?
It was pure joy, and I had not heard Ayanna speak publicly in a while, and I had forgotten what a powerful and inspiring orator she is. She's really something to behold, and it just felt really nice to be in that space. I've seen some talk. It'll be interesting to see what the demographics look like when those breakdowns are available a little bit more. That part of, Ayanna pulled in voters of color, but also young white voters throughout the city as well. And in Somerville, where she really, Capuano only narrowly defeated her in his hometown, which was, I think, was shocking to everyone.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help but notice, they were broadcasting from Capuano's party on TV, and the just diversity in the room at Ayanna's party was really kind of incredible. It was racial diversity, age diversity, gender diversity. It was just it felt like a representation of who the city is as a whole.
Yeah, no, that's that makes sense, and I'm very appreciative of your perspective and your reportage from there. I've got you for a few more minutes here. Could we sneak some baseball in?
We can always sneak some baseball in.
So again, I came across you because of a tweet about Ayanna, but part of your Twitter handle has the baseball logo there, and I see that you've written for a number of sports outlets. Our audience is not necessarily a baseball audience, so maybe keep it 30,000 feet. I'll throw you a real sort of broad question, take it anywhere where you want. What do you think of the general state of baseball in American culture these days? You certainly have narratives, I think, a lot of them coming from the baseball journalism world, that baseball's in trouble, that its long-term future is in jeopardy. I'm not necessarily endorsing that, but you certainly read a lot about it. What is your perspective on the sort of health of baseball and the place that it plays in American culture these days?
There's a lot of ways we could take that question, and I have two answers that I want to give. One that focuses on probably the baseball that most people are familiar with, which is Major League Baseball. And I think there's really a lot of issues there. It's, this is the week of Labor Day, so it's a nice time to throw in how exploited minor league players are, how underpaid they are. The living conditions are terrible. It's really a problem, and I think that Major League Baseball needs to address it sooner rather than later, particularly as more and more of the minor leaguers coming in. They're not born in the U.S. They are really, they're coming here for a dream, but the way that they're being treated is really unacceptable.
Just for some context for the audience, there's the major league teams that you're perhaps familiar with: the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, and these organizations control hundreds of players that they keep in small towns across America. A lot of them come from the Dominican, and their salaries are just, major league players make millions, and these guys make pennies. So yeah, as a labor issue, that's a great point.
$7,000 a season in some cases, if you think about that. So most people have other jobs in the off season because you can't live. They have families and they're being paid like $7,000 a season. it really pretty horrific labor conditions.
Considering the profits
And,
from the corporate side, yeah.
Yeah, and on the major league side, a lot of those labor issues are bubbling up as well. There's been talk of collusion last season because the free agent trade market was so slow, and people that should have gotten much larger deals from contracts really didn't. And so I think if we were at a different time in history with a different group of players, we might be expecting to see labor strike, work stoppage. I don't know if this group of players has it in them, honestly. But it's bad enough that I think we should be talking about whether we're going to see that at some point in the future.
Do you think baseball's in trouble?
I think baseball needs to lighten up. I think we have a lot of conversations about, baseball has the oldest demographic. They're having trouble pulling in young viewers. And a lot of, the MLB's commissioner is, concerned about that games are too long, and that's why people don't want to watch. And no, really, it's that there's all this talk about playing baseball, quote unquote, the right way. And what that means is that players aren't allowed to have passion. They're not allowed to have fun. They're not allowed to celebrate when they do something good. This disproportionately affects the players of color. We see it happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that letting the players enjoy the game and letting them have personalities on the field is the thing that will save baseball.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And it makes very little sense to me to make the product more dull, right? That seems like a bad strategy, especially in the current sort of media and entertainment market. But as you know, I mean, baseball is played differently, different places, and almost everywhere, at least in my viewing, plays it more passionately and more interestingly, at least in terms of the emotional side. Be it the Dominican or Korea or, Japan's maybe not passionate in the same way, but the fans are in a way that we're not here. I think that's a really persuasive point. And it seems like it's fixable, right? That does not seem like a fundamental...
Yes.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see in Miami. Derek Jeter bought the Marlins. And he's made some questionable decisions with the struggling franchise, but we'll see how that continues to play out. But they announced that next season there's going to be this section in the ballpark where fans are encouraged to bring instruments so that they can have some more of that atmosphere that you'll see. If anyone watches the World Baseball Classic, which is an international baseball tournament and teams from all over the world play, there's so much more celebration, and there's instruments that's a lot more like soccer matches in terms of it's like a party atmosphere in the crowd, and I'm really encouraged to see Miami attempting to bring that into their stadium next season.
No, that is an intriguing possibility. And, part of baseball's beauty is that it's localized very much, right? The local team is very famous, often in the local area, but maybe not nationally. The idea of tailoring experiences like that in different cities, letting the fans in Miami come up with their own way of enjoying the game sounds necessary because the team's struggling in a bunch of ways, but B, just a good general direction. Brittany, thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the Benjamin Dixon Show today. How can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at BrittanyDLC, and that's where I share my work, which is mostly on the intersection of sports and gender. I'm a huge advocate of women's baseball, which a lot of people don't even know exists. The U.S. women's national baseball team just came in 4th place in their international baseball tournament they played in last week, and most people don't even know that we have a national women's baseball team. So if you care at all about that, you should follow my work, because I'm stubbornly, constantly writing about the women who are playing the game.
Okay, absolutely, and I'll make you a deal. We'll get you on sometime later this year, and we'll just do that.
Yeah.
That sounds good. All right. Thanks so much for coming on, Brittany. We look forward to talking women's sports and women's baseball with you sometime down the line, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for today's episode of The Benjamin Dixon Show. Max, what has Ben up to the rest of the week?
So Ben hosted the David Pakman Show all week this week. He'll be on Thursday, and a new episode on Friday as well.
All right, very nice. I want to thank our guests today. I want to thank Brittany de la Creta. I want to thank Josh Moss. I want to thank John Miller,
Yes.
Donald Trump's pseudonym that we did come up with eventually. We will be back, I think, unless Ben fires us someday. We'll be back doing this down the line. If you want to reach out to us, find us on Twitter. I am at Media Studied.
And I'm at Maximillionaire.
Always nice to hear from people. And if you like Let's Play a Game, and you want us to come up with new iterations of that moving forward, or get a potentially Saw-themed or potentially not Saw-themed theme song for it, then just write it on Twitter.
Yeah, and if there's an obvious name that I missed in this game, I'm sorry, you should let me know.
Yeah, definitely tell Max how he can be better.
Yeah.
See how I put that in the positive?
Yeah.
All right, let's stay positive, gang. We'll see you next time we're on.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Thank you.